On today's episode, we had Brad Berry. Brad is a returning guest. He is the regional sales manager for a very large pharmaceutical company. And he shares with us his insights on how he leads his teams. We had a very good leadership discussion. I know you're going to like it. Please like and subscribe. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Hole in the Wall Business Podcast with Bill and James. I'm James Groves, and along with my business partner, Bill Dement, we want to share our journey as small business owners with you. As owners of Hole in the Wall Drywall Repair, we will attempt to peel back the curtain of owning a small business in the trade service industry and talk about the many adventures of owning a small business. Hey, Bill.
Hey, James. Glad to be here this morning.
Absolutely. Good morning to you.
With this hurricane going, I'm glad to be anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Gratefully, we're just on the edge of it.
Yeah, here in Orlando, we're going to be on the right side of the Hurricane Helena.
But expecting 50-mile-an-hour
I know
wind gusts later in the day and lots of rain.
I have an event that I was supposed to host tonight, but I'm going to cancel it, so yuck.
Yeah, I'm happy to be inside this morning.
Yeah, we've got a big week ahead of us next week going to our first franchise brokers convention, so that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Fun times. Luckily, this hurricane will be long gone by then because Hollywood, Florida does not need any more rain from this storm. Mm-hmm. Today's kind of a fun day, and it was really a brainstorm from Bill, from you, that you reinvited this guest. This guest has been here before. It was an amazing podcast, and he's from somebody who's kind of out of our orbit. We don't necessarily see this person, unlike a lot of our other guests, every day or every week. But he was such a fabulous guest. We reached back out to him because he's got such a mind and such an eye for leadership that we wanted to see if he's got anything else that has just been placed on his heart that he could talk about for leadership.
Yeah, and we always like to say we love hanging out with smart people, and he certainly fits that. But in addition to that, James, I'm going to add this new one today. We love hanging out with inspiring leaders, and he absolutely fits that mold.
Absolutely. So, well, listen, I would love to welcome Brad Berry back to the show. Brad, thank you for being here.
Thanks, James. I can't wait to meet this guest, y'all.
And so Brad is a regional sales manager for a very large pharmaceutical company, and you lead a very successful team. And why don't you just kind of talk a little bit about your experience real fast for those who didn't listen to the last show? And while you do that, I'll pull up what show number it was again, and just kind of give our audience just kind of a rundown of who you are.
Yeah, thanks, James. Thanks, Bill. I appreciate the invite. So about going on 24 years in the pharmaceutical industry, about probably 8 to 9 years in managing teams. And so it's this last run going on 5.5 years, covering the Southeast. And so it's probably been the most fun for me because I've really learned and had a chance to understand leadership from a true perspective, where I had a chance to build the team from the first time we started. So I'd never had that opportunity before. So you really kind of get to build that culture and kind of put your handprint on what you want that to look like. So that's been great. I grew up in East Tennessee, went to Carson-Newman University, where I had a chance to play Division II football, learned a tremendous amount from legendary coach Ken Sparks, who was one of the winningest coaches of all time at any level. And then got into pharmaceuticals in 1999. So been doing it as a rep, as a manager, and just learned so much, I think, from really my athletic background and really how that correlates so well with leadership and working as a team, and really just, had so many mentors along the way. And probably my dad has always been my biggest mentor. Just watching him, he retired a couple years ago from running his own insurance company. And so just to see the importance of relationships and leadership and how it all just molds together.
Yeah, that's really good because, we are a sum of our past events, right? So everything that we've done in our past is just one more building block to our current self. And we get to learn good things and bad things. We've had some good people that have worked for us and that our employees learn from. And we've had some bad people who've worked for us that our employees learn what not to do, right?
Right.
So there's something to be learned for all of it. So you have a different management style right now, or, you have to manage differently because your team, a bulk of them, they're remote, right? So all of your team, you don't see very often.
No, that's correct. So I cover the Southeast. So really, the Southeast, determined by our company, is from Washington D.C. to Miami over to Alabama. So so it's a it's a big geography, and we have 8 representatives on the team spread out across that location.
Well, Washington D.C. doesn't seem very south to me.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah.
That's funny.
I would agree with that.
That's awesome. Well, listen, so kind of give me a little bit of philosophy. What's kind of been going through your head lately about just when you want to lead your team, when you want to inspire them? Because obviously you have to be there to hold them accountable for their actions. You also have to be there maybe to be a cheerleader for them when they're having a bad day, or support for them when they have a struggle that they need to get through. How do you manage all these people that are not necessarily able to touch them on a regular basis, but yet still let them know that they're part of something really important?
I think that's the key, James. And I'll try not to repeat a lot of the stuff I said last time, because I think it's probably ingrained in me to really think that way. But something that has really kind of been on my mind lately, and as a manager and as a leader, and I've actually been going through a class through work called Leadership Essentials, and we had a big discussion about managing versus leading, and what is the difference, and how much time do you spend in each one of those areas. But I think the thing recently has been about leading from the front, and I think that's so important as you lead 5 people, 8 people, 10 people, 100 people. And it's really leading from the front, to me, is all about kind of building that culture, setting the vision, and really setting the tone of what you want that to be. And the leading from the front part of it is you have to be that example. You have to do that. Because if you're asking your team to do one thing and act a certain way and follow principles, and you're not doing that, then that's not leading from the front, and that's going to go badly in a hurry. And so I think leading from the front is all just about what you want that tone to be. And for me, it's an example would be if I'm asking the team to get into conversations and say things a certain way, or communicate a certain message, I need to be willing to do that. I need to be willing to show that and demonstrate that. And I go back to kind of just coaching in sports. If you're coaching a quarterback on how to read defenses, well, you can't just tell him what to do. You've got to be able to show him what to do. And I think that's leading from the front. But I also think there's a time and place where you lead from the back as well. And one of my representatives and I, and Bill knows him real well, and you do too, James, Russ Polvino down in Atlanta, we had this conversation the other day, and it really made sense when I heard him say it. But leading from the back is more about supporting what's being done from the front. And sometimes you may be in a meeting, or you may be in a franchise meeting that you're going to, and you may not be leading that meeting. So you may be having to rally support from behind and bring the team together. And so I think, leadership is it's so just a fun process to go through, because there are so many different styles. And I think that the key is how you really communicate it, how you live it out, and how others see the style that you portray.
Yeah, it's so true. And then, being able to communicate the thought without becoming rough or offensive, for lack of a better word. I mean, you need to be able to show them, here's how to do what I need you to do. Here's the why behind we're doing it. Here's the benefit of doing it the way that we're showing you how to do it.
Yep.
And then you got to get out of the way so they can do, right? So you don't want to micromanage, but you have to at least give them that foundation first.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because one of the things I've been working on in conjunction with my boss is getting out of the way. Because I think, as my job, I go out and do field rides with the reps, and really just, make sure things are going like they're supposed to do, and really offer coaching. And sometimes I still wear that sales hat a lot, and I want to get in that call. I want to jump in and talk. And instead of letting them do whatever they need to do, if they mess up, they mess up, but that allows for more coaching afterwards. instead of me getting in and taking over the call and really doing it how I want to do it. I'm there to coach and help them get better at what they're doing. So that part that you mentioned of getting out of the way is sometimes hard because you have minimal, time that you're with them, and you want to make sure everything goes as well as you hope it does. But sometimes it's okay to let them mess up and then learn and get better.
I actually had this conversation with my daughter this morning. She's a college graduate, and she's been, I don't know how many years at Chick-fil-A now. And she's sort of middle management there at this point, but there is a layer above her. And although she is actually technically in charge of running the crew, the layer above her will come around and say, you need to. And she says, I was 2 minutes from doing that. Now, she doesn't say that to them, but she's talking to my wife and myself this morning to say, how do I deal with that? And we were able to tell her that you probably do the same thing to some of your employees. So why don't you give it a little air? We have a 5-minute rule. If I think one of my employees should be doing something and they should be noticing this now, I'm going to give them 5 minutes to see if it doesn't occur to them. So we recommended that to her. But in your instance where you're on a sales call with a representative, that may be the next thing he's getting ready to go to, but you're already ahead of that. So sometimes part of leadership is just being still and letting things kind of unfold a little bit.
Bill, you're so right. And I think it all comes back to listening, and listening. And no matter what it is, if it's in a relationship with your spouse, if it's a relationship with a coworker, if it's a relationship with, in a sales call, the listening process is so key. And we did a thing recently at work where we talked about, listening to understand. And I watched the video and they said Harvard Business School did some research that the number one factor in a true sales call is building relationships. And you only build relationships when you listen. And unfortunately, so often we, and I include myself in this, are listening, waiting for the other person to get done talking so we can say what we want to say.
Yes.
And it's not anything to do with what they're telling us. It's, okay, would you hurry up and get through? Because I need to tell you something. And instead of listening to what they say, pausing, and then replying to what they had to tell us. And the whole point of that was it shows that you care. It shows that when you care, then the trust level goes up. And so now the person understands when I'm telling you something, you're listening and you're bringing it back to me, making it about what I said instead of about what was important to you.
Brad, another element of that, I believe, is that when you listen to someone, yes, you're showing a basic respect to them, but they'll also, in what they're saying, telegraph to you what's important to them.
Yeah.
So if the next thing coming out of your mouth addresses what's important to them, or you have a solution to that, they're certainly going to be more open to it.
Did you know that there are over 140 million homes in the U.S.? 97% of them have walls and ceilings that are built using drywall. The drywall repair industry is simply enormous, valued at over $13 billion a year. We're hole-in-the-wall drywall repair, and for years we have been perfecting the art of repairing drywall, developing and refining our systems, and strengthening our brand. Our business model is simple, scalable, and easy to learn. We believe it's a real game changer. We are successful drywall repair pros who decided to take our repair business to a higher level, growing both our franchise training and support to industry-leading standards. You'll benefit from our vast experience helping your franchise hit the ground running and achieve success quickly. We'll give you access to our marketing team that has created strategic programs designed to get your phone ringing and booking new business fast. Join a fast-growing leader in an exciting dynamic segment of the home service industry by franchising with Hole-in-the-Wall Drywall Repair. Start building your own business and securing your own financial future today. It's nice when you can have a relationship with your employees that you can allow them to fail and let them know that that's not necessarily a failure. That's just an area of opportunity to learn from, right? We were recently in a meeting and we're working through some franchise sales. And in our list is, it's a franchise comes through the pipeline and they have to, here's your funding, here's all your review process for documents. And then whether you won and sold that franchise or you didn't sell the franchise, but they didn't label it as a loss. They label it as an area of learning. And I thought that that's really good because there's something to be learned from that. Even if you are showing one of your employees in the field on a call and they're not perfect, you know, Bill and I, we talk about it a lot, but you know, like if the meal that you make right this second isn't the greatest, it's okay. There's still 2 more and 3 more meals tomorrow.
You get 3 more chances tomorrow. Yeah.
So it's not the last sales call they'll ever go on, but it is an area that you can show them and teach them and they can learn from it. And I think being able to show somebody, which is when you're in the front with them, is being able to show them, listen, you really hit the nail on the head, except for these 3 parts. Let's go through and maybe we can work on your technique. So how do you let your employees down easily, or how do you let them, know when it's time to maybe get a little bit, what I like to call a check up from the neck up and tweak those things? What's your process on that?
So I think this is something that we talked about on the last episode that we did together. And I think it really holds true. And I think it's worth talking about again, but it's that whole love, tough mentality, that the old school way was tough love. And you kind of just hard around the edges and you kind of beat people up with stuff when it's your way or the highway and all the taglines. And so when you flip it around and you love tough, then they understand you've set the tone about how much you care about them. You've already shown that. So when you have to have the tough conversations and you have to have the accountability, it's okay. And it's all about how you deliver it, because at the end of the day, they're accountable, you're accountable, everybody's in the accountability boat to something else or someone else. And so if we can do it together, or you can try to do it on your own. But it's a whole lot better when we're working together to come up with that solution. And I think that's the key about anything is, if you step out there and you're uncomfortable with doing something, that's probably good, because the place we want to get to, and this comes up a lot, is you want to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and you got to get to that spot, because then you're going to grow. And, it's I think the greatest teacher of leadership is being a parent and with kids. And, I think the biggest mistake parents can make, and I've made it and everybody's probably made it, is you probably try to take care of your kids and shelter them too much and don't let them fail. And so, example, my daughter she's graduating in May from UCF. And so she's starting to do a couple of interviews, and, she did one the other day, and I kind of went through a mock interview with her, and I said, look, at the end of the interview, you need to make sure that you sell yourself and you ask them for what are the next steps. What I really want this position. And she's like, do I really need to say that? I'm like, yes, you do. I mean, that's part of it. So you need to step out of your comfort zone and ask them that. And I said, this is one interview. The likelihood of you interviewing one time and getting a job the first interview is probably very slim. So I tell you that not to disappoint you, but to say, just learn from it. Learn from this one, so the next one you get better, and the next one you get better. And it went back to when she was getting recruited for softball, and we would talk to different coaches, and then I would read things about coaches and their perspective. And I read a very interesting thing from a coach one time when he said he would go in the stands and he didn't really watch how they hit the ball or how they threw the ball or any of that, because everybody at that level could play. He said, what I watched was when they made a mistake, what'd they do the next time? When a teammate was doing something, how'd they encourage them? When the coach got after them, what did they do? How did they respond? And I think those things correlate so well to what we do. And when somebody gets after you, do you take it personal, put your head down and just drag your feet, or do you respond, learn from it, say, yes, sir, coach, and then, man, want the ball to be hit to you next time so you can do better.
Right.
And so I think all those things really just make us better people, make us better teammates, make us better employees, and really that just bubbles up to the organization as a whole.
When I reached out to you a couple of days ago about being on the podcast again, and I just, mentioned, hey, what's kind of in your mind or whatever. You sent me a thing about the things that we can. It ties right into what this coach was looking for, was attitude, effort, and actions. Can you kind of unpack that a little bit and give us your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can. And man, if my kids were on here, they'd say, "Really? I mean, this is all we hear." And so I think it's true recipe for success. And I send it out to the team all the time. And it just happened to be, I think last time I mentioned John Gordon. I read a lot of John Gordon books, follow him. And so every Monday he has a Mindset Monday. And this so happened to be Mindset Monday was only thing you can control your effort, your attitude, and your actions. And don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Don't worry about what everybody's getting or that you don't have or any of that. But if we focus on our effort, how hard we're going to work, if we focus on our attitude, choose to be positive, and we focus on the actions and truly try to make it a better place for people and treat people well, then that's a pretty good day. And those are things that you can control. And my kids were in athletics a lot, and I said, look, be coachable as much as you can, but also can control what you can control, and that's your effort and attitude. And no coach is ever going to question you if you're giving all you have and you have a great attitude. And it's the same. It's the same with employees as well, and it's the same with us. Every morning we choose. We can get up and have a positive attitude or a negative attitude, and we can choose to give it all we have, or we can go 50%. And then the actions that we have in terms of treating people a certain way that's up to us. And it's the simplest of things, of saying hello to someone. And you can catch somebody so off guard if you say hello to them and then you notice their name tag and you say, "Hey, Bill, how are you today?" And they're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. How did you know my name?" And, it's on your name tag. I saw it and took a chance. Or, if you're walking through the parking lot and a lady is trying to get groceries in her car and, you stop to help. And unfortunately, the environment we're in these days those are very few and far between.
Yes.
And it's sad, but I think those things, just effort, attitude, and actions are, to me, the fundamentals of just being a good person.
And the basis is these are the things you control. And what's unsaid is no matter what else is going on around you.
Yeah.
If everything is smooth seas and smooth sailing, great. You still control these. If it's total chaos, if everything else is out of your control, these three things are controlled only by you, how you react to everything going on around you.
And those things go back to being a good leader, because it's really easy to lead from the front when things are going well. Now the seas are smooth, everything's good, no problem. But man, when you get a little adversity, and then you see really how good of a leader you are, because those 8, 10, 50, 100 employees you have, they're watching. So now, are you the same person that you've always talked about being? And now we get a few ripples in the water. How do you go?
And they are watching, aren't they?
They are watching. Yeah, 100%. And so, that's where, to me, you've got to be that consistent person no matter what. And so in our area, let's say we get a week of sales numbers and they're lower than they have been. Well, that inside me just drives me crazy. But I know I can't reflect that to them, because I've got to continue to build and find areas that we did have success and build on those. And I think those are things that, so often go unnoticed, is not celebrating the small victories and missing out, and everything's focused on the big one instead of those little milestones along the way that we've been able to do. Maybe for us, it's, hey, we got some business from some new customers, or we got in to see new customers that we haven't been able to get in to see. And so it's just the little things that you've got to continue to just give success stories and build people up. Yeah.
And I want to give a quick shout out to James as well. That's an element that he's really brought to Hole in the Wall, is that he recognizes the small things. It's something as small as we have a brag board. So a manager can, or management or ownership can brag on an employee, or employees can brag on each other.
Yeah.
And we reward that at the end of each quarter. And there's liable to be anywhere from 30 to 50, and sometimes more than that, brags that are literally pinned on a board that anyone can go and look at and read every day. But it's an acknowledgement of a small victory.
Yeah. And those shout outs could be the one thing that really, motivates that employee. They may want to see that recognition. And when they see that, man, you've just made their day.
Yes.
Yeah. And when they're having a bad day, they can actually walk to the board and see the praise that they have received. In converse, if you don't have very many praises up there, maybe you need to step your game up. So it's kind of a way to kind of let those who may not be 100%, shift and ask that question. Well, what can I do to be better? What can I do to get my name on this board more? So, and I've been around a lot of companies. I have had to be the bad boss. And when I came into this company, I decided I'm not going to be that guy. I really want to make sure my family, aka my employees, know how much I appreciate them. Because frankly, I'm not out there slinging mud in the drywall field. Bill's not doing that anymore. And without our employees, we don't really have a business, right? But it's our job then to keep them accountable to make sure that we maintain the Honeywell standards, but yet show them the pathway to that and show them our appreciation for all the hard work that they do. I got just kind of a quick question for you, and I try to always keep in mind who my listener is. My listener typically is maybe a small business owner or somebody who is thinking about becoming an entrepreneur. In our world, maybe someone who might be buying a franchise or has bought one of our franchises. And like I was saying earlier off air, just because you're good at a task, maybe you're a good drywaller, maybe you're a good mechanic, or you're great at mowing lawns, whatever you're really good at, you decide to open up your own business. You decide to become your own boss. Fire the boss, become your own boss. That's great. The issue that people realize is that, wait a second, I was never taught or trained to be a leader. I've never had to be a leader. So now that's why a lot of construction companies, the bosses, they scream. We have a couple competitors in town.
Management by yelling.
Yeah. And their employees leave that company, come over here and go, man, all that guy did was yell at me all day long.
Yeah.
Just cuss and yell and throw things and, leading through intimidation versus inspiration, right? So thinking of that person in mind, that they're just trying to do their best. Obviously, they want to be a good boss. They start scaling. They can't have themselves, be the only employee of the company. What are some things that you would put into practice early to make sure that they set themselves up for success down the road?
So that's a great question. I think the first thing you have to do is you have to hire and surround yourself with good people. And I think, whether you're building a team and whatever it is you're doing, when we first launched our division, I mentioned earlier, I had the chance to build my own team. And so when I knew the geographies that I would need to fill, I knew kind of that little book of, you always hear athletic directors talk about, they've got a book of coaches or people that they would, they're going to give a call to when they get a position. And so I had that, and, Russ was one of them. And I knew I had Atlanta, Georgia. I had worked with Russ previously. I mean, that was a no-brainer for me because I want somebody like Russ on my team. And so I think the first thing to me is you've got to surround yourself with good people. I think the second thing is you got to know your people, and you've got to show them that you care about them, that you want to get to know them. You want to get to know their families. You want to get to spend time with them, because as you show that you care about them, now you're building that bond. Now you're building that genuine trust factor that, all right, we're going to do this together. And then I think the other thing is you have to be vulnerable. And I don't know if you saw the video that was out all weekend. Tennessee went to Oklahoma, had a big win. A lot of the talk was about Josh Heupel going back to Oklahoma because that's where he played. Then he was fired. And so in the locker room afterwards, as he's talking about the team, and it was a great display of leadership because he said, I know this week was made a lot about me. And then he got emotional, and he let his players see that, and he let them be a part of that and show a little bit of vulnerability. And I think that's huge because a lot of times, as leaders, you're portrayed to be this person that's never affected by anything. And I think when you can show your vulnerability and you're transparent with your team, then they can see that, all right, we are all in this together. And so, the trust is a huge one. They've got to be able to trust you. You've got to be able to trust them. So I think all those qualities really build into what someone building a team would want to do. And then you've got to determine, what's our culture going to be and what's that look like and sound like.
Yeah, that's great advice, because the first thing that a normal person would think about is, well, I'm going to give them some KPIs, some key performance indicators. I want to give them their goals, and I want to make sure that I set them up with the proper training, and I want to make sure I get, that's, as an ops guy, that's where my brain goes a lot of times. But that doesn't matter if you've hired the wrong person, right?
Yep.
You got to put the right person in the right seat, so it's not a square peg round hole situation. So I love that you said that. That's great advice. Bill, is there anything that you can think of that we can squeeze some more knowledge out of this big brain of Brad's?
Well, if we can't, I know that he is more than willing to come back and be on the program again.
Always.
He always is a treasure trove of knowledge and experience, always really open to share it. And we're so grateful for that.
Bill, I've been called a lot of things, but I don't think I've ever been called a treasure trove.
There you go. I'll send you a trophy with that on there.
That's the first one.
And he's got a child that lives in Florida, so he's in Orlando occasionally. So next time he's in Orlando,
that's right.
Maybe we'll.
Yeah, I think you do owe us a visit.
We'll come on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Well, Brad, thank you for being here on the show. It's just been a fabulous learn. We've had some really incredible people on the show lately, just from sales techniques to entrepreneurship. And it's nice to kind of talk about leadership in general. Sometimes it's about their business, and a lot of times it's about, their origin story and how they grew their business. But it's nice to talk to somebody like you, who you're an employee of a bigger corporation. But it's so essential to have these core values and these leadership skills and never settle, because well, I already know it. I don't need to read anymore. You're always talking about reading it. Here's the latest book. Here's the person that I'm studying, because we're always evolving. Everyone is evolving. And so I just thank you for that. Your leadership by example. You're inspiring to me and Bill for sure. And I can't wait to have you back on the show again.
No, I appreciate it. I always look forward to it. And I appreciate the opportunity to be on to talk with you guys.
Excellent. Well, listen, thanks everyone for listening.
Yep. And thanks for taking the time to be with us, Brad.
Thank you, Brad.
Yes, sir. Stay safe with the weather.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Really good show today. We'd like to thank you for listening to the Hole in the Wall Business Podcast with Bill and James. We'd love for you to join our Facebook group and keep the conversation going. If you'd like to learn more about us and our business, check us out at holeinthewall.com. If you'd like to learn more about how to start a Hole in the Wall franchise, go to holeinthewallfranchising.com.